What's up, guys? Paul from Golfers Authority. Welcome to the Behind the Golf Brand podcast. I'm actually really excited today because I have my friend Todd Kolb. Now, a lot of you guys know him from a lot of different things. Todd is the man. Todd has US Golf TV. He has this huge YouTube channel. He has a training academy where he lives. He's an author. He has products. Like, he is like literally the jack of all trades. Like, this dude is, that's cool. So I'm really excited to have him on the show. We had Nick on the show from US Golf TV a couple of months ago because Todd was busy, but Todd's coming out with a new book, which is gonna be really cool. So we'll talk about that. But I want to kind of know more about Todd and just kind of like all the stuff he has going on because this dude is legit. So without further ado, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate that. That's a nice
introduction.
That's all. Yeah. At the end of the
day,
you
were expecting that now, were you?
Oh man, I'm gonna bring you along with me other places I go. That's
dude, let's do it. You can teach me how to play golf, and I'll just introduce you to everybody. So Todd has a lot of stuff going on. So Todd, where do you live? You live like in one of the Dakotas, right?
Yeah, so we're based out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, born and raised here. My wife and I raised our kids here. My parents, lucky enough, are still here in town, and it's been a good place. Sioux Falls is a great community. It's a good business community, and yeah, that's where we've been from day one.
So I know you're good at golf. I always ask that question. So tell us your story. So you grew up in Sioux Falls, right? Did you go to, like, how'd you get into golf? Was it your dad or your mom or what?
Yeah, good question. So my dad by trade is a fireman, and my mom is a school teacher. So we're pretty Midwestern people, fireman and school teacher. And my dad took up golf later in his life, meaning, well, not too late, but I mean like 30, right around that time frame. And so then he introduced us to the game. And I have two sisters who both played a lot of golf when they were younger, both played Division I college golf. And so he introduced us to the game. It's been a wonderful game's been really good to our family. It's been my career for almost 30 years now. Both my sisters were into coaching for a while. Now they're in different areas. But yeah, Dad introduced us to the game, just developed a passion for it. And, I went and golfed last night with my son and my daughter, and my wife came along. So it's been a great sport for our family.
So you grew up playing golf, but then when did you become a PGA professional?
Yeah, so out of high school, I went to the University of Nevada in Las Vegas, UNLV. That would have been 88, 89. Played on the golf team there. Was living in Vegas. Went from Sioux Falls to Vegas, which is a pretty big culture shock.
It's like night and day difference.
It's totally night and day, especially in the late 80s. And was there for 2 years. Played on the golf team there. And then I transferred over to New Mexico State in Las Cruces. Got in their PGM program, which is Professional Golf Management Program. Played golf there for 2 years, got my degree, and then became a member of the PGA in 1993. So quite a while ago. And then moved back home and started in the Golf Academy shortly after that. And so I've been a member of the PGA for, since 1994, I think is when got my actual.
So then you moved back to Sioux Falls, and then is that when you started your academy?
Yeah. So I started I met, like a lot of people, I got introduced to golf, of course, through my parents, but my first job was actually as a caddy. And I met a gentleman by the name of Dave Hanton, became a lifetime mentor for me and a wonderful friend. And he opened up a new golf course here in town called Willow Run Golf Course. And so I went to work out there like most guys do. I was picking the range, cleaning the carts. Then I worked in the shop. This was all through late high school and in college. And then when I graduated college and got my PGM degree and was a member of the PGA, I wanted to start teaching. So I approached him about it and said, "Hey, Dave, I love golf. I want to teach the game." And he said, "Sounds great." And let me set up shop on the driving range, and started with 0 customers and a few range balls, and off we went. So he really opened up the door for me to start my business at the golf course that he started. And here we are.
So is that your academy you have now, right? Same academy, or did you change?
Yeah, so the academy we merged with Sanford Health, which is a healthcare network in the Midwest. It's a great organization, and they approached me a little over 5 years ago as they were starting to get involved in golf. They've been involved in sports. So Sanford Health is also involved in sports, and one of the reasons that they're involved in sports is to basically enhance a quality of life in the communities in which we provide healthcare in. So golf is one of those areas, and so the academy merged just over 3 years ago with Sanford Health, and now it's actually run by them. And we have a new gentleman, Sam Bosser, leads the golf academy specifically, and kind of and runs that specific area of it. My job has changed at Sanford, where I'm now involved in all sports, not just specifically golf.
So you're still doing that though? Are you
Oh
still
yeah,
actively doing?
yeah. So actively involved. That's where I spend 99% of my time is over there. And then over on our US Golf TV side, which that's a company I started over a decade ago with my business partner, Nick, who's been on your show, just a great guy. We've been business partners for, oh gosh, 12, 13 years now. And he runs all the day-to-day operations, him and Jordan, our main team over there. And then my role within the company is one of the owners. Is I also do some of the stand-up, some of the golf tips, some of those types of things. But from a
You're the
day-to-day
star. Are
operation,
we talking about some of it? You're the star, dude.
well, it's a great.
Nick is not. Nick has never been on a camera on camera. Come on, you know that.
Oh, we're getting him on. I'm trying to get him on camera more often now, though. I'm trying
I
to
even
pull him
asked him
out a
that
little bit.
question. He's like, "You might have seen me walk by once during a video," but like he said, he's like, "Will never go in front of camera of
Oh
being
yeah,
behind it."
he's good at
So
what he
then,
does, though.
so you've been teaching, right? And
Mhm.
then you started US Golf TV. When was that? 12 years ago, you said?
Yeah, it's been well over. I'd have to look exactly. It's been at least 12 to 14 years ago. It's been a long time.
So what was the play on that? Like you just wanted to make a website to provide material on how to get better at golf, essentially? Or wasn't that like on live? Wasn't that like on television, like television?
Yeah, it's interesting. So the backstory on it is I had a neighbor by the name of Mark. He owned a video production company, and we were friends. We were neighbors, kids kind of similar age. And he approached me and said, "Hey, I've got a you're a golf instructor. I produce video. Why don't we let's do some video golf tips together and start a website?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this sounds great." So off we went and we kind of did that. And then shortly after that, we were approached by Midco, which is kind of a regional sports network here in the Dakotas, Iowa, Minnesota, some things like that. And they were looking to expand their programming. So they approached us about doing a TV show, so a half-hour TV show. That's how it all started. So we put together a half-hour TV show with some golf tips, some product reviews, uh, just general news on golf and things like that, and off we went. And we did that for about 3 or 4 years with them. And that's how. So the original U.S. Golf TV was truly a 30-minute TV show, and then just over the course of time and changes, it evolved into more product reviews. Business development stuff, products, digital products, things like that. But at the core of it, the core has always stayed the same. The core has always been to provide information for the average golfer to help them play better golf and enjoy the game.
So now your YouTube channel is pretty big, right?
It's gotten there. That's a lot of credit to Nick. Nick's been the driving force behind that. He's the guy who just pulls it together week after week. And yeah, I think we're at. I'd have to look now, maybe
You got a
185,000.
lot. You have 184,000 subscribers, dude. Like, and I love how you're so like, you're just like, yeah, I help out on it. It's like you're like the dude in the videos, like every single video, it's you teaching somebody like how to do something. And I think it's so cool because I don't know, like I met you guys 4 years ago. Nick and I became friends. I just started out. I didn't really know you. I mean, this is the first time I actually have talked to you, to be honest. I've talked to Nick a
Yeah.
million times. I've helped Nick and I and Jordan have all worked together and helped each other out and whatever, just friendly,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm like Midwest values. That's what I
Yeah.
can say. And so like, it's cool to have you on the show because like I've known you from afar, right? And I've seen your content. You make fantastic content, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because it actually helps people and there's no agenda. right? Like you could
Mhm.
tell in certain content with just agenda behind it. And there's really not. It's just like, hey, you want to know how to do this? Do this. And I think like that's why I think you guys have grown so much, because you have so many facets of your brand, right? Like you have the website, you have US Golf TV, that's its own little
Mhm.
silo. You have your YouTube channel, which is pretty freaking big, 184,000. That's a lot of people.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, are you publishing new like how many videos are you guys doing a week right now? Like publishing?
Yeah, so well, first of all, thank you for that. I've really, Nick and I from day one have really tried to pride ourselves into, I've kind of had this golden rule for myself in everything that I do, from golf instruction to business products, whatever it might be. And it's pretty simple, and that is that the person in front of you must improve. So if I'm doing a golf tip, I'm thinking, okay, who's the person who's going to watch this? Who's the person who's standing in front of me? How am I going to help them get better? If we're doing a business deal, of course, we need to get something out of it. We got bills to pay, we got staff to support, but how can I help that person in front of me also, get something out of it? So there isn't, I appreciate your words on that, Paul, because there is really no agenda. At the end of the day, we're just trying to help people play better golf and enjoy the game. So from a content standpoint, yeah, we're doing about 3 new videos a week. Now they're not all brand new. Nick and the team are great about, repurposing some of the content or taking something from somewhere else and putting it together with something. And the team's gotten pretty efficient right now. So um, Nick and we're probably like an old married couple. I mean, we can set up the camera and I know exactly where he's going to
And
go
shoot
with
it
it.
and know the
Shoot it.
angle and know like
Yeah.
what you're what you're trying to do that day, right? Like
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you're publishing. I'm looking at your channel right now. Like you're literally releasing a video a day. It looks like
Yeah.
that's
So,
crazy.
yeah. So it's so, it's easy. So typically what'll happen is Nick we'll meet. We might meet before, whatever. We meet in the range. He'll get the cameras. He'll get it set up, 2 cameras set up, and he'll say, "All right, Todd, I need something on how to help people increase their club head speed, or I need somebody to improve their contact," or he'll give me a specific topic that he wants the content to go. And we've done it for so long. I mean, I don't want to say there's no prep time for it for me, because there is a little bit, but it's just going through what I've done for 30 years. So if I'm trying to increase somebody's club head speed, okay, my brain's going to certain areas. So yeah, that's probably like you after you've
You
done
know what you're
hundreds of,
talking about.
yeah.
Like it's like the camera is just a person, right? Like it'd be
Mhm.
no different if I came to you and was like, "Hey, I have a chicken wing. How do I get rid of it?" Right? Or like you'll just
Yeah.
know and you just go into the lesson. It's not like, okay, well, let's figure this out. How do I teach you? It's almost like natural because you've been doing it for so long. You understand how to help people's games, right? Like essentially, and like how to what are the fundamentals that somebody needs to get better, right?
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I had no idea. Like when I first met you guys, like I'm like, okay, I have a website, like similar to mine. I mean, I do product reviews, and just
Mhm.
I'm an average player. But then like your YouTube channel has really taken off in the last couple of years, like a lot, right? Like a ton. I mean, when did you guys start YouTube?
Oh gosh, it's been about the same. I mean, it's been
So you
probably,
started like the stuff.
yeah, we didn't start right away when the company first started. That was kind of Nick's brought that to the table, and he kind of helped do that. But it's like anything. People, you'll go and let's say you go to a tour event and you watch somebody hit a golf ball and you're like, wow, how do they do that? It's just, the sound of the contact and the rhythm and the tempo. But you don't see the years and years and years of buildup. You just see the finished product. And so it's been a slow process, but once you kind of get going and you just consistent with it, and you have a good understanding of what you're trying to deliver in your audience, your audience. It just takes time. There's no quick way to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like some people think that you just can start making videos and it's gonna blow up right away, and it just doesn't work like that. Like, I mean, if it's some trending topic, maybe. I mean, I don't really know, but like, especially with instruction, like, I mean, there's years of foundation there built before you even make the video, and it has to work, right? Like, essentially, whatever tip you're giving, product review is different, but like whatever golf tip or instructional thing, like it has to work, right? Or it has at least help somebody. It may or may not work for them, but at least it's legit and not like I could never do that, right? I could never be like, oh, you want to do this? Like do that. Don't take the lessons from me. Um, But I mean, I think it's really cool to see like how much your channel has grown. And I mean, that's just a testament to your team. And your team's not that big, right? I mean, I know
No.
three or four people, like, but they're all hardworking, all have the same agenda. They're all trying to get the work done and focused. And I think that's really cool. And I think the testament to the brand, right, that everybody's doing that. So like I said, I've known Jordan and Nick for at least 4 years. So it's crazy. They're like still the same team, you know?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, at the end of the day, I go back to kind of that golden rule: the person in front of you has to improve. So if people watch our content and they go implement the ideas that we put forth, they better improve. I tell my staff that, especially when I was doing a lot of teaching, I would remind them all the time, hey, that person just gave you $50 or $100, but more importantly, they gave you their time and their trust. When I make a suggestion on something to do in their golf swing, let's say change their grip for sake of discussion, that individual is going to take that information and they're going to, if they're a diligent student, they're going to go spend hours and hours and hours doing what we suggested they do. So that damn well better be good information, or at least come from a place where we're trying to provide the best information possible. Because I always tell people this, like the greatest gift that a student gives a coach isn't so much time as it is trust. When I was working, on the ladies tour quite a bit, I don't really get out there. I don't really work with anybody right now, but when I probably spent 7-8 years out there a lot. When somebody gives you their trust, whether it be in business or anything like that, you got to do your best to make sure you deliver and give them the best information possible. Because once you lose that, if we lose the trust of our audience, we have nothing, like you said, Paul.
I mean, you guys release a video. Like some people think like, oh my God, you're releasing a video day. Let me tell you now, that's almost impossible to do. It's like super hard to do that. But like you would think there'd be diminishing returns on those videos if you're trying to do one a day. And that is just not the case. Like, I mean, you release a video, like I'm looking at the channel right now. I mean, you released a video 5 hours ago and it already has over 2,000 views. Like, so essentially whenever Todd releases a video on YouTube, it does very well. Like it will be over 10,000 views within a couple of days easily, which is that just shows you the strength of the channel and the strength of the information that's being given, because people are like, Todd releases it, someone watches it. It's not, it's almost like, okay, they're waiting for that because they know it's good content. Whatever that topic might be, it's going to try to help them in one capacity or another. So, I mean, that's really cool because you don't see that a lot. So
Yeah,
I think it's a testament to just the brand, and I think to you and your training technique and like what what you're talking about, and you're helping people get better.
I also think it's part because I think that there's a group of people out there, and I think that group is getting larger, and that's really kind of the premise behind the book, which I know we're going to talk about a little bit, but is people are starving for just genuine good information. And we live in this world right now where it's instant information and it's so trendy. I mean, everybody goes with whatever the latest thing is. This particular person wins the golf tournament, so then the magazine's got their swing on the cover, and they're telling a guy who's 65 years old.
But they're all connected. That's the thing too. Like that's when I started the same thing. It was like there's so much BS out there, and there's so much like pay to play, right? So essentially, like you want coverage, like I have brands will say, "Oh, look, I got into golf.com," and I read the article, and I'm like, what did you pay them? Like it's obvious. Like not an average golfer might not notice that, but when you see it, like it's the industry, right? So I think like people, I agree with you. I think people are starting. I mean, as technology increases and people can start giving out free content that actually helps them, then they're going to realize like, oh, that's all just bullshit. Like honestly, especially with product reviews and like, you just know.
Oh yeah.
But I think
I was just gonna say it's
you guys are the opposite, because you're like me. You're just like we're independent, like no one sponsors us to like talk about your product.
Well, I think it's a great time. It's a great time that we live in, because I mean, never before would I have thought that 2 guys in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, 3 guys with George, could produce a video that, like our one chipping video that has over 3 million views. I mean, You know,
Yeah, it's a chipping video. Like,
yeah, I mean, if you weren't one of the big players, and I'm not going to name names, but or who could have thought, could sit down and write a book and put it out there, and it's such a great time that we live in, where anybody and anybody, if their information is good, I mean, this is what I was being. I mean, good players, golfers, they eventually find good information. They just find them. I mean, I've seen coaches who nobody's ever heard of, who, they don't teach over on a gravel road, but they're in a dumpy old driving range with bad range balls, and they're busy. Why? Because their players get better. And I think people are starving for genuine good information. And we use I use the analogy a lot that our company is, there's like two types of horses. There's show ponies and there's workhorses. And our company is workhorses. We're not flashy. We're not in, LA. We're not, we're just regular folks from Midwest who work hard every day and try to provide good information. And sometimes, the show ponies, they come and they go, and like, look at this person, they're the hottest late thing, and this was the crave. But in a couple of years, nobody, you don't hear from them again. So that's just how we believe. It's what we've built our business on, and it's how we deliver our information.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like, your view, like, I was like I said during the show right now, like, I was just checking the channel out, and I mean, you can look at view per hour, and they're getting like 250 to 500 views per hour on like new content, which is just like crazy. I mean, it's because it just shows you that people want to consume that information because they know it's good information and it's not just crap, right? Or like entertainment value or something like that. So when you do the videos, though, it's mainly, I mean, you have your team behind you, but you're giving the instruction on whatever the topic is that day, right? Whether it's chipping or driving or chicken wing or whatever. It's just kind of, you're giving a lesson essentially, right? How to fix it.
Yeah. It's so Nick and I will come. Sometimes he brings ideas to the table. Sometimes I'll bring the ideas to the table. Hey, I'm seeing this in the comments a lot. That's the other thing too. I mean, I literally look at every comment, and I respond. I'm not going to say I respond to every single one of them, because that would be, but I bet you I respond to probably 70, 80% of them, and I read every one of them. And that's where a lot of our ideas come from. So like I go back to that same philosophy. How can we help the person in front of us improve? If it's through YouTube, it's an email, it's a lesson on our driving range here. Like, how do I help that person get better? Let's deliver information that applies to them. And we've really started to gain some, as I've gotten older, at 52 myself, I don't move and swing and practice like I used to. So some of our information has really started to also transform into what we call the experienced golfer who's been around a little bit, 63 years old, newly retired, just had their knee replaced. What about information for them? So that's kind of in our whole vertical line coaching system and our vertical line system stuff, that information geared specifically for this particular stage of life. That's another area. Like, you see, you see Bryson DeChambeau do something who's in his 20s. Well, I mean, the guy who's 75, he can't swing like that. I mean, it just doesn't, so what about that guy? What's out there for him? And so we've also really kind of tried to gear a lot of our information towards the everyday golfer, like the person who's just at the local muni or the country club and loves golf.
There's a lot of people like that. I think like they're overlooked. I think like industry thinks that like those people don't exist, yet they're like the person who buys all the stuff, right? So essentially, like, there's just a lot of bad content out there by the big boys that like nobody watches because it's all like commercial, right? Essentially, and it doesn't help them. It's just more like a brag fest, right? Or like, oh, look who's in this video, and it's like, yeah, but who cares? Like, I watch that on TV.
Yeah, people. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, they just want to play better golf.
That's it, right? Like, they just want to know, does that thing work? Does that product work, or is that BS? How do I chip better because I suck and I don't want to go spend a bunch of money on lessons? I can watch Todd teach me how to chip, because essentially I'm going to get a lesson from Todd, who's a 30-year PGA professional that knows what he's talking about, right? And essentially, like, what for you guys though, like, you've done other stuff though, right? Like, because you have that, but you also have like hard goods too. Don't you sell some hard goods? Like,
yeah,
products?
Yeah, so we've been kind of branching over into that area as well too. So that's why I'm really blessed. So I'll have these ideas, and they all, like I said, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's important that they come from a place. Okay, how do I help this person in front of me get better? What do they need? So we've been talking a lot about the content and the information, but even from a product standpoint, you know, um, is a golf club that's designed and hit by a PGA Tour pro also the best design club for somebody who's got a swing speed of 87 miles an hour and can barely hit their driver 220 yards? I mean, of course not. And that's where club fitting has made a lot of progress. I mean, club fitting and those things have made some real progress and things like that. But so training aids, we got a couple training aids that we just launched. The vertical line board is coming out, it's called, and then we got the vertical line stacker, which kind of work on specific areas of the golf swing that we feel help the average everyday golfer. Now, do I hope someday that I flip on the golf channel and there's a tour pro using it? Of course we do. I mean, that's always kind of fun. But at the end of the day, what's most fun is if I go to a local driving range and I see somebody using it, or I'm getting on an airplane and somebody says, "Hey, I saw your YouTube videos and that really helped me play better golf."
Does
So
that happen to you? I bet people see you and go,
it it will periodically. It's happening more because the channel started to grow. But I get a lot of emails from people. Say, "Hey, this really helped me play better." A lot in the comments. I've actually gotten a few handwritten letters because our audience generally gears towards upper age wise, 40 to 70. So some of them, I mean, they'll still sit down and write a letter, which is pretty
That's
cool when you
cool.
think about it. Somebody takes time to write a letter and send it to you, or takes time in a comment. So yeah, every once in a while we get that.
Do you ever get like negative comments like that doesn't work? That's stupid.
Oh yeah, yeah,
What do you
oh yeah.
do in those situations? You're like, whatever, skip.
It's twofold. It's twofold. I always read them, of course. One of them, I always thank them for their feedback, because whether I agree or disagree, at least they're telling us what their opinion is on something. And usually there's always some hint of truth into what they're saying. It might not be all true. Like, let's say they might make a comment about, "Hey, the sound is really bad," or "You talk too much," or whatever. I mean,
Yeah, like whatever, dude.
so I take it with a grain of salt. But when I was younger,
Yeah,
it maybe
yeah.
would have bothered me, but it doesn't bother
Life's
me much
short.
anymore.
You're like, whatever, whatever. Yeah, you can tell. Like, I think I get that too sometimes. Just whatever. That's all I
Yeah.
really do. I mean, if it's constructive, I'll be like, "Thank
Oh
you for
yeah.
the constructive, whatever." If it's just like dumb, I'm like, "Oh, I hate that brand because they're a-holes." I'm just like, "Okay, what's your opinion next?" Like, what am I gonna say? Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
No, you're wrong. I don't really care. It's your opinion.
Very true.
Um, so let's talk about the book. So, what is the book, and why did you write it?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I was showing you there. So it's called The Bad Lie. This is actually just you can't even buy this particular one because we're going through the last revisions of it right now.
So, when you have to revise a book, do you have to read through it like yourself and be like, "I don't
Yeah.
like that," or what? I don't know, honestly.
Yeah, so I'm going through and reading it, and I got my little post-it notes I stick on the sides, and I just did about the first third of it, and I cleared them all out because I put the notes already in another place. But um, yeah, so I'm going through and reading it and just making sure it's one thing to read it on a screen, like in a document, and then when you get the actual book and you see the pictures and things like that, it feels and reads different. So I've been just going through and doing that. But it's called The Bad Lie: Why Traditional Golf Instruction is Failing You. So what I really wanted to do with the book is I wanted to differentiate for the average golfer, the everyday player, is the information that's out there, the trendy information, the on the newsstands, on the TV, is that information specifically the best information for you based on your age, your ability, your time to practice, and those types of stuff. Now, it's a little bit of an us versus them. It's kind of what I call the traditional versus our ideas. And I'm always very clear, and I hope I hope I conveyed this well in the book, that I'm not by no means saying that the traditional coaching or the current information out there is bad information. I'm not saying that at all. Obviously, the information that a tour pro is getting is working because they're on the tour. So I've really tried to hopefully make that distinction. The question is that the right information for you, Jim, who's 58 and just getting ready to retire and has a bad back? And so what I wanted to do is provide information that was specific to those types of people and where they're at in terms of available time, talent, and where their body is at that stage of life. So that's really why I wanted to put the book together.
Yeah, because now it's like one shoe fits, right? Everybody, like essentially, there's a million factors as to why you're not good at golf, right? Like,
yeah, it's 100%. It's so we talk a lot about this even at the academy. So the easiest thing for me to do at the academy 30 years ago when I started would have been to just say, here's the system we're going to teach. And I'm not going to say names because I don't want to get myself in trouble, but there's certain brands or instructors out there who, if you went to teach for them, let's say, Paul, you're a young person, you say, hey, I want to learn to teach. And so I'm going to go teach at XYZ Academy, a big name academy. And you would be told exactly what you should teach that particular person. Well, I want to see the club in this position at this point of the golf swing. I want to see it here. I want to see and you would follow that particular roadmap. That's the easiest way to do it because you can replicate it and you can kind of assembly line it. But I never believed that everybody walks in your lesson tee is the same. When a 13-year-old boy walks on my lesson tee and wants to play college golf someday, that's a different situation than a 63-year-old who just retired and is struggling because he just had his knee replaced. I can't teach them the same. So I always challenge my team to look at the person in front of you, develop a specific roadmap for that person based on your knowledge and your expertise and all the stuff that you've done, and you lay that journey out for them. Now, that's hard because everybody's different, and that requires more time and wisdom and experience because you can't just follow a book and a system. But I think it's the best way to do it.
so what's the book talk about then?
So the book basically the first couple chapters we talk a little bit about, okay, here's basically kind of laying the groundwork for is the information that you're being fed on a daily basis from mainstream, is that the right information for you? So my first goal was to open up their eyes. Say, when information comes your way, just ask yourself a simple question. Is this something that is good information for me based on this particular stage of life and where I'm at for practice? If Dustin Johnson does this particular wrist angle at the top of his backswing, okay, that works for him, but he can also dunk a basketball. He's a world-class athlete. Is that going to work for you? And determine that. So that was step number one. Then I dive into the kind of some of the distinctions. So let's say, for example, in the setup, one of the things that a lot of amateur golfers struggle with is the ability to compress the golf ball and hit a draw. They tend to hit it thin and they slice it. So we build in specific things within the setup. So instead of having somebody set up perfectly square to the target line with a very neutral grip, we close their stance a little bit. We move the ball back in their stance a little bit. We give them a little bit of a stronger grip. And all of those things are built in to help them hit a nice high draw. Okay, so we kind of walk through each step to talk about the grip and then the setup and the takeaway, and we work our way all through the golf swing, kind of showing, okay, here's traditional, works well for a lot of people. And then here's our vertical line swing concepts that might be better suited for you based on where you're at. And then we work through the same thing in the chipping and the putting, and then some common faults and fixes. So it's really kind of an A to Z book, but the real premise and the theme behind it is the information in here is really geared towards the everyday player and what they can do to help themselves play better golf.
So when is the book coming out?
Well, you can order it right now on Kindle. And we're doing the first revision of it right now. Like I said, the final kind of read through and making the final adjustments. And then it'll be available, in actual book format in a couple weeks. So certainly by the end of July. Part of it is just how quickly we can get through the edits and get those types of things done. And then it'll be ready to go.
Are you publishing it through Amazon? or different or publisher?
Yeah, Amazon. You'll be able to find it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and then Bad Lie Golf also. You can go there and on the website and get it there as well too.
So, is this your first book, or have you written other books?
No, this is my first book. So, and I,
Would you do it again?
That's a tough question. You know what? The person who helped me write it, her name is Abby. Of course, and Nick kind of helped me put together all the concepts and the ideas and put it in video format. And then Abby kind of helped pull out my voice on that. And she did a phenomenal
It's a lot of
job.
work. I couldn't imagine how much work that would be to write a book.
Yeah. Let me put it this way. Will I do another book? I honestly think I will. Maybe, but I'm only going to do it if I get Nick to raise his hand and I get Abby to raise her hand, and then Jerice did all of our design stuff with it. If I have my core team together,
You'll do it again. Yeah.
But it's a lot of work.
I mean, it's kind of cool. It's cool that you're doing a book like that, where it's like, this is kind of almost like a playbook for somebody who wants to get better, but not like, it's not the mainstream stuff, right? Or it's like, it's more, I don't, from just with the lessons that I've been receiving, like I've learned that unless you're playing a lot, you don't know how to fix your swing. You don't know you don't even know what the problem is, right? Because you're not swinging the golf club enough to know like, oh, it's, and then at least someone who's professional can say like, okay, you're pushing it a lot to the right. So let's change up your stance. Let's change up ball placement, and we'll kind of overcome that shot because that's what you're doing. And, and it's almost like, unless you're hitting a ball hundreds of times a week, you would never know that. Right. So I think it's kind of cool to come up with a playbook and be like, look, if you're slicing, try this, and kind of show people like ways that they can get better quicker without having all the time invested of hitting thousands of golf balls and troubleshooting their swing, essentially.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's chapter 19. That's what we call early club face rotation ball. So that's like you said, when people are slicing the golf ball. So I look at it from a standpoint of the average golfer. So we cover that, like I said, in the book in chapter 19, where they rotate the club face open. So like even our takeaway position is a little bit unique and different than what we might call the traditional. So I don't care if you're slicing it, you're having trouble with your driver, you're scared of bunkers, putting. One of my favorite parts of the book here is in the putting, where we have this section we talk about the putting template, how you set up. So I'll give you a little bit of insight on that. So for example, we've tested hundreds and hundreds of golfers, and what we found is that for the vast majority of them, the distance from the ball can really dictate how the putter moves. They stand further away versus closer. But for most golfers, the length of a putter grip, I should have one here in my office, but the length of your putter grip is about the same distance that their toe line should be away from the golf ball, or i.e. the target line. So if they take just their putter grip, put it on the ground, and they put a little line on one side of the grip and a line on the other, one side would be where the ball is, one side would be where their toe line is. So that specific example gets them the right distance away from the golf ball. And if we can create that consistency in their setup, then their eyes get in the correct spot. They start seeing the lines the same, and then their stroke improves. So there's some real gems in there specifically related to setup and some stuff that can really help people play better golf without going to the range and spending hours and hours hitting golf balls.
Yeah, it's the little things that like help you remember, right? Like, oh, it's whatever, thing you learn by practicing a lot, or it's more of a tip that can be like, if you do this, this will help get rid of whatever, or help you know how far back to stand from the ball. Or, I mean, do you find that most golfers are self-taught? Because I feel like it is.
Yeah, I think most golfers are generally self-taught. The other thing too is that a lot of golf instruction out there gets real deep real quick. it's one of the things I actually learned from my dad, who was a fireman, who taught me and both my sisters to play golf. And we both, were fortunate to play Division I college golf, and he was a fireman. But one of the things he really did well for us, and maybe he didn't even realize it at the time, is that he just taught us basic, core, simple fundamentals. And I think when you look back on the greats, and I give some examples in there, when you look at, Jack Nicklaus and Andy North and Tom Watson and the legends, Sam Snead, the legends of the game, you'll see a lot of the same characteristics of the vertical line swing that we teach in those legends that lasted for years and years. And I think a lot of golf instruction, maybe because the golf instructors want to sound smart, I don't know, or maybe it's the advancement of technology, but the information and the content gets really deep really quick. And the person who's just trying to play better golf and watching a 4-minute video, they don't care about torque and angles and vertical. They don't really care about that. What they care about is they just want to play better golf. So simple things of just, hey, next time you go to the golf course, start with 60% of the weight on your lead foot. Feel a little bit of pressure there, and early in the backswing, make sure you shift that weight to your trail foot and specifically towards your heel. Boom. They don't need to know that the pressure shift starts, on the ball of the lead foot, it goes towards the lead heel, and it rotates at this particular angle. They don't need to know all that. They just want to be told what to do to play better golf.
It's like too much information. Like, it's like you'll never figure out what's wrong if this is too much. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, I mean, just for what I've been learning, just the last couple of months of instruction is like literally, I mean, I'm hitting like 7-iron like 200 times, right? In lesson or something like that, over and over. And like seeing this still little, I mean, it's so crazy. Like, this is what I've learned. Just a little bit of a nuance, and wherever you put the ball, or the ball with your foot, or like whatever, it's just crazy how much of a difference it will make to your shot. You never think about that. You think, oh, I'm gonna set up, I'm gonna smack the crap out of it. Or this past week we did a sim because it's too hot outside, but we were doing just like course management, like just basic course management, like what to do, right? Because everyone thinks like, oh, I'm on the tee box, I'm gonna hit a driver right away, and it's like, maybe you don't need to hit a driver. Like, like, okay, this is a good rule. Like, my instructor's like, here's a good rule of thumb. Like, if it's so many yards, hit a driver. If it's not so many yards, maybe you shouldn't hit a driver. Maybe you should hit a shorter club, because your second shot, you'll get on the green. Like, just basic fundamental stuff that like you're never taught. You just think like, hit driver, hit long iron, who God knows where it goes, and then you'll get on the green and you'll putt in 3 or something. Like, I think that's what's kind of cool about the way you teach, is that it's just, it's the meat and potatoes, right? It's like what you need to know to get better. And it's cool you're actually doing it in a tangible form, not just like, a video. Well, nothing wrong with video. I'm just saying, like, somebody can, like, my dad would read that book, right? Like, he would read a book and like highlight it and take notes, and he would do whatever, and I think like that's kind of cool that you're doing that. You'd write a lot more books, man. Why don't you write a book on the vertical line swing? That's like your big thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it is. Yeah. And there's a lot of the concepts in the book, the bad lie on that. And I'm a big believer in clarity. I've been fortunate enough to be around some great players who have won tour events, won major championships. And I've learned a lot from them. I've learned a lot. But one of the things I've learned is clarity and simplicity go a long ways. I mean, you know what it's like. I don't, what it's like, Paul. Like, if you're standing on the 18th tee box and you're trying to beat your buddy out of a Diet Coke or lunch, or you're trying to win a major championship, you're trying to hit a jumper to win the NBA championship. You got to have trust in what you're doing, and you got to have clear simplicity. It's like, hey, whatever it is, and so I've just always felt like the best players understand what it is that they want to do. And just because something is simple does not mean it's easy. People think of simple and they think easy. That's not the case at all. Simplicity can be very difficult because you got to do it over and over. And that's really that's really my passion, my mission, whether it be the book, our US Golf TV, our YouTube channel, our website, our products, whatever it is just trying to take a very hard game and try to make it as simple and digestible as possible. So when somebody walks to the first tee, they've got one thought in their head and hopefully can play some better golf.
Well, it's funny because through just the lessons I've had lately, I mean, you realize that when you're self-taught, you make the game so much harder than it needs to be. And like, it's a lot easier of a game once you just kind of know the basic fundamentals of the game. And not in, I don't know, like, you don't need to crush the crap out of the ball every single time, right? Or you like let the club do the work. Essentially, you don't need to be the power behind the club. And like, just I don't know. I think it's cool that like that's kind of been your, what you've been doing since the beginning, right? Like just teaching people for free, essentially. I mean, not through, through online stuff, like how to get better, that actually works. And then it's all not just like, this is the new flavor of the month, do whatever weird ass swing that so-and-so's doing, or something.
Well,
it's more tailored.
It really is. Like, I'll give you a specific example of that. And this is where I'm a little bit of difference of opinion than a lot of instructors in the golf industry. And I talk about this in the book, there's this huge push right now towards distance, distance. And I'll be the first to admit distance is important. But when I see people struggle with golf, when I see a high school kid struggle with golf, or even a 52-year-old guy or female struggle with golf, it's generally not because they can't get to a par 3 in one shot or a par 4 in two shots. It's because they're in the trees, they're in the weeds, they're out of bounds, they're chipping twice, they're three putting. It's not because they lack distance. Most people these days hit the ball plenty far to shoot scores in the 70s on a regular basis, but they cannot control their golf ball. It's all over the damn map. But yet the industry is like, you need distance, you need distance, you need distance, because it sells, and it's sexy, and it moves product. But at the end of the day, you got to hit the ball in the fairway. Because if you're not controlling your golf, you don't have a chance. The other part of this too is that, but people will say, well, what about the tour? And they, bomb and gouge it. I'm like, okay, that's true. But once again, it goes, I hate to keep pitching the book, but it goes right back to exactly the book. When a tour pro hits the ball in the rough or the trees, they have an arsenal of shots that they can hit to get out of that.
They know how to do it.
They know how to do it. The average person hits the ball in the trees, they're chipping out sideways. They hit the ball in the rough, they're just chipping out with their wedge. So a mistake on a missed fairway for an average golfer is not the same as a mistake made by a tour professional. Yeah. And this is the thing that the industry doesn't tell Jim, who's watching golf on TV, who's 57. He thinks like, I'm not shooting in the 80s because I don't hit the ball far enough. It's not the case, at least in my experience.
Yeah, one thing I've been doing when my instructor's been telling me is like, keep my score. He's like, just like put down every shot you hit and where it went on so you can go back and reflect upon it and like, where am I screwing up, right? Essentially on that whole round. And for me, it's like, it's so apparent because I can see it and I'm like, okay, I can't hit a lob wedge, right? I hit shitty out of the sand and my putts are good. My mid range is great, but my driver kills me. So it's essentially I'm hitting a bad driver shot, saving it with a hybrid or a mid iron, right? Doing a bad chip or two, and then I'm gonna putt for 2, so I'm gonna get a 5 or a 6. And it's like you start seeing like these are my trouble spots, instead of like, well, I just suck. I need to hit the ball farther. Well, it has nothing to do with that. Like maybe I should hit my driver because it's gonna go to the right, or I don't know. I just think it's more fun when you actually start realizing what you're doing wrong instead of just being like, why am I so bad? Right. Essentially. So
yeah, it's a good point. You're getting good counsel and good advice there. It sounds like, because I like to call it stackable skills. I think that when you look at really good players, whatever level it is, they're solid in a lot of areas. Like when Tiger Woods was dominating, right? He was just dominating, winning majors by 12 shots. It was hard to say what the best part of his game was because he was literally good at all of them. He was driving it long, he was driving it straight, he was making putts, he was chipping, he was hitting his irons. And therefore he was the number one player in the world at the time, and the most dominant player in the game. When you think of players at your local club or in your foursome or even on the tour who are identified with one specific skill. Bryson, let's use him as an example. When people think of Bryson, they think of distance. Okay, which tells me that obviously he's long, but that also tells me that maybe some of the other parts of his game aren't as good as they need to be in order to be that really good player. But you look at like Scheffel right now, who's like number one in the world and won what 3 or 4 times already. Like I think he's fairly long. I think he's average, but I mean, like it would be hard for me as an average viewer to say, okay, what part of his game is like outstanding? When the truth of the matter is he's probably pretty good at all of them. So I just believe over time, being solid at a lot of things is better than being great at one. And as an industry, we're doing a disservice when we tell people distance, 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 and we ignore the other stuff. And it sounds like your coach, who's doing a really good job, is giving you good information because he's getting you to think about the other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, as a average consumer, right? Like golf, I mean, that's how I started all this. You don't know any of this. You just think like, okay, this club will make it go higher in the air, or it will make it go. It's forgiving. Like, what the hell does that even mean? It means it goes up in the air. That's what it means, right? And it goes long. Like, let's call it what it is, right? Like, oh, it's distance. Okay, you're gonna hit the crap out of it, but if you hit the ball bad, it's gonna be in the woods, and you're never gonna find it. Like, essentially, like, I mean, it's always the right adjective to explain what something does, but at the end of the day, like, does it really matter? Is that what I really need? Is the newest and greatest always the newest and greatest? No. I mean, it's just marketing hype. I mean, seriously. So I think it's cool that like that you guys are similar in that way, where you've always kind of like with your product reviews, you've done the same thing. You're like, hey, this is whatever, this is how it works. Check it out. You might like it, you might not, whatever. But with your instruction, it's more for like, this is what you really need to know to get better. And that's what you're doing with this book. It's like, hey, this is what you need to know to get better. And now it's in a tangible form. You can have Todd sign it for you.
Yeah, we could do that for sure. I mean, I think part of it is just, our information is when we fully are aware, it's not for everybody. If you're a real golf swing, I don't know what the word is, gearhead or, what, like, the golfing machine book, like if that's your angle, and there's nothing wrong with that, but if that's your angle and that's what excites you about the game, we're not for you. There's other channels out there and other books and places you can go to that, guys who are hell of a lot smarter than I am, who can provide that information. We're pretty simple. We just provide good, simple, solid information for people who just love golf. And that doesn't mean that they don't practice and work on their game either. The same information I share in the book and I share in the videos is the same information that I use when I was working with the girls on the tour, to my Division I college players, to my high school players. I mean, it's this, there's the same theme. I mean, when I was on the driving range at a tour event, lots of times a lesson would be something like, hey, just keep it clean at the top. Smooth out your transition. Make sure you get turned in your hip on your backswing. It wasn't this like in depth, get the club at a 33 degree angle and then drop it in the slot and then torque on your left heel. Like, now there are people who are on the driving range who are teaching that way and were great teachers. And then they had students who learned and liked that. That just wasn't never my style.
No, it's cool. I mean, I just think it's fascinating because I could talk I could talk about this all day long. I mean, golf becomes a lot more fun of a sport when you start seeing like a little bit of improvement, and you're like, oh wow, or like you don't feel like the anxiety when you see a lake or you see a bunch of bunkers, and you're like, oh, it's no problem, who cares, right? Or you understand like why the course is designed the way it's designed, like the architecture of the course or the hole and like how to play a hole. Like, it's just so much strategy to the game. And I think just learning the basic fundamentals and knowing that you can rely on your own skills, that none of that matters, right? Like, essentially, if you get to a point, I'm not saying I'm at that point, but if a player can get to a point where they can rely on themselves and not be like, oh crap, here comes the sand, oh crap, here comes the lake, like just do it, because they've done it a million times before, right? It's no different. Her swing doesn't change. It just always, I don't know. So I think that's cool. That's how you guys kind of teach, is like, this is what you need to know to get better. Try it, and then try this other thing.
Yeah, it's a
So
great point you bring up there, because it's I've thought a lot about that as a coach. Good coaching eventually helps people become self-sufficient. They should be self-sufficient. People need to know and understand their own golf game. And once they start to, like you're saying, you get a little bit deeper into like, okay, man, I usually make this poor swing when there's water on the left, or the wind's coming out of the left, or they start understanding.
or I see a bunch of houses to the left. Like,
Yeah.
oh shit, I'm at a house. Right.
And I think what a good coach truly does, and it's the whole premise of what we've been talking about here today, is they guide the journey. They don't dictate it. They guide it. Say, hey, what about this? Look here. How does that feel to you? And that's really what we pride ourselves on, is it's not like you go to A, B, C. It's like, hey, let's look here. How does that feel for you? What does that understand? How do you understand that? And eventually what truly happens is, most golfers that I've been around, from tour pros to not so much beginners, but people who've played golf, they generally, if they start to struggle, they fall back into the same old habits. Like when I start hitting bad golf shots after playing golf for 45 years, I usually fall back into the same habit. Okay, so if I'm aware of what that habit is, I have the opportunity, and I understand how to get out of it, then I have an opportunity to help myself moving forward. When you're new to the game, you're probably making a variety of different mistakes because everything is new. But the longer you play the game, the less new mistakes you make, the more you just repeat the old mistakes, if that makes sense. And so a good coach helps shed light on what those mistakes are and helps them develop a plan to navigate.
Oh, 100% agree. 100% agree. Like, I mean, as a self-taught player, I used to be okay. Let's put it that, before I had family and job and all the whole 9 yards, right? And then you don't play as much, so you get worse. But then it's like you still try to play the way you did, but you can't physically, and you're not 20 years younger and whatever. But then even trying to learn how to re-swing, like for my own personal game, I've been trying to literally start from scratch and be like, I was an arms player. I never used my hips. I never turned. I never did any of that. I was always arms, always arms. And then just everything's wrong. Let's put it that way. But then as you start practicing and you realize like when I see a bad shot and it goes to the right, I already know what I did wrong at that point. I'm like, oh, I went back to my old swing again, right? On that, like automatically, because everything all my setup was correct. So essentially like my rotation was what it used to be, not what it should be. And then I've been recording a lot of my videos. I'm gonna start posting them on YouTube, like just me playing 9 holes or me playing 18, and me rewatching that. I'm just like, oh my God, because you can see it. You can see like the driver is like over your head, right? Like it shouldn't be over your head, and it's like, oh, there's a chicken wing. Oh, that's why the ball went right. Not instead of trying to digest it at the time of shot, and you don't know what the hell's going on. You're already like, oh man, a bad shot. At least you look back and go, oh, I'm still doing that crap, And I think like, I don't know, to learn just what the basic, whatever that player's basic mistakes are, to then try to get better is, key.
Yeah, it's beauty. I mean, you're getting good. Like I said a couple of times already, you sound like you're getting really good direction and coaching there, because it's, it's more self-discovery and the role of a good coach.
Well, I've learned so much in the last, and it's like, he's not a pro, like he just somebody really good, and like who's taught people, and he's like, all right, I'll show you how to do it. And I was like, holy crap, like this game's so much easier when you know what you're doing. Like it's fun, like it's not a challenge. I don't need to, I don't know. I don't know. I love it. So that's why I think we all play. But you better send me a book.
Oh yeah,
because I want a Todd Kolb special. I want a signed book.
Oh yeah, I'll do that.
I'll be like,
100%.
I'm gonna tell Nick.
And yeah, make sure you connect with Nick, and we'll get one to you, and let's get one to your dad too.
Yeah, he'll probably try to steal my book. He steals all my good stuff.
We'll give him one too. We'll give him.
He thinks this is like a buffet. He's like, oh, I'll take that, and I'll never get it back. And I'm like, come on, Dad. Well, I really appreciate you being on the show today. Like I said, been a fan, worked with you guys for a long time. Finally glad I got to talk to you because I know you're really busy. And I'm really excited about the new book coming out. So where can people find the book? I used Amazon and Barnes and Noble, but what was the website for the book itself?
Yeah, it's called badliegolfbook.com. Badlie, L-I-E, golfbook.com. They can get it there. They can go to our US Golf TV website. They can email us there. We get it to them, like you said, Barnes and Noble. It's going to be available
You're gonna
there.
sell a bunch of them, dude. I already
Amazon.
know it.
Oh, I thank you. I hope so. We just want, like I said, we want to help people play better golf, and we want them to just think about what information they're digesting. Is that the right information for them?
Dude,
Let's
I get
create some
emails from
clarity.
Todd like every day. Every other day I get an email from Todd. Todd's tips. Like I swear to
Yeah.
God, it's like Todd Kolb, and it's like some for real. I've gotten those for years. They're great. You guys need to get
Yeah,
on
thank
US
you.
Golf TV's email list, like for reals, because like they give out so much good free content on like how to get better at golf. Like it's a lot of those email lists are crappy. Like this is not a
Yeah.
crappy email list. Like this is all good content, and so I don't know. Support them. They do good work.
Oh, I
Well, thank you
appreciate
for
that.
being on the show, and I really appreciate it. And I look forward to doing more with you guys in the future. And I will see you guys on the next episode.